How are you guys? Is everyone okay? A bit tired? Yeah? Well, it's only T-2 hours until beer free time, so just hang in there. So I want to ask you a few questions. Has anyone here ever written a blog post? Ever? Put your hands up. Can you put both hands up? Both. Everyone. Okay. Who has written a blog post in the last month? Put your hands up. Okay, wave. Okay. What was your post about?
About my failures in the past.
Oh, about your failures? Okay, that's risky. Okay, what about you? What was your post about? Both of you?
Mine was purely technical. Nothing too interesting.
I'm sure it's interesting. What about you?
From an Indian developer, and I was like, no one. I got a comment, an echo from an Indian programmer.
Okay.
And I had to post and show it how it looks, because it was like, this code doesn't work like again.
Okay, perfect. So you were sharing knowledge, right? Fab. Thank you so much. Okay, so how to grow your business by blogging. I know that most of you are thinking, oh God, blogging is just something I do in my spare time, or it's not something that's the first thing that pops to my mind, right? But blogging can help you grow your business if you're a freelancer, if you're a developer, or if you work in a company. So I really want to focus on two companies that I've written content for, and I'm going to speak to you from a first person. So from my own experience as a content marketer. Can everyone understand my British English, or should I make it a bit more? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So, when you need to write a blog post, it needs to be of high quality. If it's not going to really work. So there's two things you need to consider. The first one is making it optimized. That's SEO optimization. But unfortunately, I don't have enough time and everyone's pretty tired, so we're going to skip that part and focus on why it's important to write for people, to have the human touch. So, can anyone tell me what they think is the most important thing when you're writing a blog post? What's most important?
Value.
Value? Okay, what about you?
To get some emotion from the reader.
Emotion? Anyone else?
The topic.
The topic? Anyone else?
To be precise in what you want to communicate beforehand.
Perfect. That's actually a really good point. So the most important thing is knowing your stuff, right? There's no point in writing a blog post about, I don't know, this phone, which looks very fancy with the sticker, if you don't know anything about it. So you need to make sure you're writing about something that you're familiar with. Know your stuff. If you don't, make sure you do research for it. There's so much stuff out there on the internet, and we're part of it, we're contributing. So make sure that you do the research before you start writing any of your blog posts. Second thing, you need to make sure that you share valuable information. Now, what I mean by that is, don't just say, okay, I'm writing a blog post about water. You need to make sure you explain exactly what it is, and that your reader goes home with things that they've learned, like water is refreshing, I can swim in water, and so on. So it needs to be very precise. There's no point in writing content that no one has key takeaways from. So when you start writing it, make sure in your head that you know what your key takeaways are. And thirdly, make sure you engage your audience. It's really great if you have valuable information, if you're sharing it, but it's no good if your audience is half asleep or if they don't really want to read your blog post and get to the actual value. So I just want to go over some few statistics, which I realize are slightly less interesting, but equally important when it comes to blogging. So marketers who prioritize blogging receive usually a 13 times more ROI, so return on investment. That's a huge amount more just by blogging. You get 67% more leads, and interestingly enough, by 2020, online businesses will be conducted by 85%, which means that your blog is your voice. So there'll be less and less face-to-face interactions, And it's going to be more focused on online writing. So think about it. What you write is who you are. So it gives you even more initiative and even more inspiration to focus on really sending your message and telling your audience what it is that you want to achieve, or what you're selling, essentially. And companies who blog receive 97% more links to their website. That's almost double, just by blogging. And I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, but there are so many more important things to do. But really, blogs are becoming the 5th most trusted source out there for information. So people nowadays are no longer really going to Wikipedia, but they're going and looking at other blogs. Okay, I don't know if some of you have heard about Fishing Booker, but this is a company that I've written content for. So I'm going to lead by a few examples. They're an online community that enables you to plan and book fishing trips online, worldwide. And basically their main aim, their business aim, is to make your life simpler if you want to go fishing, right? And to save you time. It's a bit like Airbnb. I don't know, does anyone know what Airbnb is? Nod? Everyone nodding? Okay, nice. So this is one of the companies that I've worked for. Managed WP, I'm sure most of you have heard of, but it's where I am at the moment. It's Nevena Technologies, and our business aim is to help and manage websites, unlimited amounts of websites, and again, save people time and make their lives easier. So do you guys see a correlation here? Both companies want to make your lives easier and save you time. So I'm going to ask you one more time to raise your hands, both hands please, if you think that these two industries, these two companies, should have the same content strategy. Who thinks that they should? Are you sure? Are you guys sure? Really? No one? Who doesn't think that they should? Really? Okay, cool. So let's go over it. Managed WP, like I said, fosters mostly to an online community, right? So you need to decide what type of content you want to give your community. Imagine no one's heard about Managed WP, so you need to get them to find out what it is. For example, they might be Googling WordPress management. Perfect. So you need to write on those topics. This is the first type of content that I recommend. From a WordPress professional to a WordPress business owner, this is just an example of a recent post, and it was there in order to establish our credibility. If you are able to work with, write about, interview, any of the above, people who are in your industry and are interested in the same business goals, then you'll be able to establish yourself as a credible industry, or as a credible blog, so to speak, in that sense. So, for example, we interviewed Ryan Sullivan. He's the CEO of WP Site Care, which is a WordPress maintenance service, and we got a great response. There was a lot of popularity and a lot of chat about this post. So this is the first type of content. The second type of content, this might be the most obvious one, but it is nonetheless very important. It's the one that we get the most response on, and it's talking about your tools. So when we have a new feature or when we publish something new, we talk about it a lot and we blog about it. And here we usually get the most responses, the most feedback. And the third type of content is something that I like to call a thought piece. Does anyone have an idea what a thought piece is? Anyone? No? Okay. So a thought piece is something which is relevant to your industry. So if, again, you're writing about water, there's no point about throwing in a bit of planes or anything in that. You really need to focus on your industry, but at the same time, you need to write about something which is not necessarily connected to you, yet it makes the people who are in the industry think about your product, such as remote work. So website management, Managed WP, we allow a lot of freelancers to work remotely, so this topic as such is interesting to them. So these three are the type of content that we use at Managed WP. This here, I'm sure a colleague of mine will recognize, is our very well thought out content plan. This is another thing that you need to have. Now the reason I'm showing you this is because it's a little Trello card that we keep, which as you can see is nothing special. It's not thoroughly organized. It doesn't have 1,000 notes or anything, yet it's one of the most important things that we do at Managed WP. When you're blogging and when you actually really want to grow your business by blogging, you need to have a plan. You need to be able to have certain titles, a certain direction that you're going in. Now, this doesn't actually mean that you can't change it. I mean, if you decide that it's something it's not going to work, you're more than welcome to change it, but the idea is there, and that's why it's important to create a content plan. Equally enough, you have to have deadlines. I mean, you guys have deadlines when you do development work, right? Everyone has deadlines. You have deadlines for anything that you do in your job. Some people, unfortunately, think that deadlines are pretty arbitrary, but I think that they're the most important part. So even when it's blogging, which seems like something that you can sort of, do on the side, and I mean, who's it going to hurt if you post a post a day later, right? Wrong. The point is, you need to make sure you have a deadline and that you stick to it. If you don't, your plan sort of wiggles out of place and you never really get to grow your business, because without set goals, set aims, and set deadlines, it's like with anything else, blogging can't become a part of your business growth. Another important thing to mention, I'm sure a few people have mentioned this today, but I shall do it anyway, it's to track results. There's two ways of tracking results. One of them is by comments. Now, the reason I'm showing you this particular comment box is because this person, this is a post I wrote, and somebody wrote it on there that they didn't particularly like it. They thought it was really boring and that there was no point. Whereas another person wrote that they really enjoyed it and thought that they learned a lot. My point in this is that any engagement is good engagement. So what you want to do is try and track people to comment and appreciate your writing, or at least start reading it. And that way, you're really building your own audience and the audience of your company, in turn growing their business. Okay, so now that I've told you about this company, who here, can I ask you again to put your hands up, thinks that the same content plan can be applied to Fish and Booker? Anyone? Yeah? Okay. Why do you think so?
Because they have similar goals.
Okay.
And similar approach to their clients online.
Okay. What about you? What do you think?
Well, these are general types of content that every business could have and should have.
Okay. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Okay. So that's actually partly right. The reason is because the same strategy can be applied, yet content differs in huge amounts. So like I said, this is Fish and Booker. It's an online community that allows you to go fishing worldwide. This is the first type of content that they have. So this type of content is focusing on captains. What they want to do is they want to attract captains who have boats, right? So they can list their boats on their site, and then people can go fishing. It's exactly like Airbnb. You need to list your apartment and get it promoted. So the first type of content is getting their captains to start listing on their sites. The second type of content is for people who are experienced fishermen. So you want to talk about top fishing destinations, different types of fishing, or a particular fish that's exciting, such as this marling, and you focus on giving them useful information, what rod to use, where to go, who to go with. And this is content that they will be very useful to them, and they will keep coming back to their blog. And lastly, this is an interesting one. It's because these people who haven't never fished before might be interested in trying out something new. So you write content to attract people who might want to try a new adventure, try going on a different holiday, and essentially you grow your audience by writing posts about interesting dates, such as Valentine's Day, or you write posts about things that people haven't tried before, such as 10 quick tips about fishing. So here's a quick glance at a content plan for Fish and Booker. So again, the strategy is there. You have to think about the type of content, you have to create a content plan, and you have to set yourself deadlines. Like before, they are no less important, so you need to stick to the same principles. Now, I've picked this particular example on purpose because I'm not sure if you can see, but this is just for the past month. It's a statistic showing that on a single blog post, 4 captains signed up just after reading it. So if you do the math, if you write 5 of those and 4 per month, that's 20 new captains just by writing 5 blog posts, which has cost you no money, only your time. Again, this is an interesting response to a post. There's 140 responses, 140 people were interested, which is a huge amount, and they're discussing a fishing destination. So Cancun, where can you go fishing, what can you catch, who you should take fishing with you, is it safe for children? So really, it's just a matter of engaging your audience and getting them to think about these new destinations, about new places to go fishing, and new ways to try things out. In other words, blogging is extremely important in growing your business, but it's important also to recognize it's not the only content strategy. Blogging is important, but you need to focus on all types of content. So content marketing isn't just about producing blog posts. There's other ways of successfully content marketing, such as FAQs, which are extremely popular with Managed WP, and user guide manuals. So people who want to find out more about a dashboard, they want to learn how to use it, they are more likely to go and look at our FAQs and user guides than they are our blog. So it's important to keep in mind it's not the only resource. And again, for Fishing Booker, it's very popular to have white papers for captains which explain to them how they will market themselves better on their website. So really, blogging is just part of your content marketing strategy. And that's pretty much it for me. I try to keep it short for you guys because I know everyone's tired. But if anyone has any questions, they are more than welcome to ask.
Do you think that paying someone to write for your blog can be also cost effective?
Like paying a freelancer or?
Paying someone who's writing to write for your blog.
What, your personal blog or your business blog?
For your business.
Okay. Well, it just really depends on what your marketing strategy is. I think that. Okay, so the question was, do you think that paying for someone to write for your blog is cost effective, right? Okay, so I think that it can be. As such, the only problem is that it depends what you're trying to achieve. Usually people who have in-house marketing tend to think that that's better because they know the product well. For example, at Managed WP, every single person who comes to our growth team to do marketing spends 2 weeks in our customer happiness team just getting to know the product. So there's that advantage of having an in-house marketer who really knows everything that's going around the company. On the other hand, there is a lot of very good freelance bloggers out there who will write quality blog posts who only focus on that. So it just depends on how important or from what perspective you want to approach your content marketing strategy for your business. I hope that answers the question. Anyone else? Any questions? No?
Of course.
Okay.
So a lot of people are afraid to write or just simply either never wrote anything or maybe they just find excuses not to start. What's your advice for somebody who hasn't been blogging before to start blogging for his company blog?
Thank you for that question. So I think it's really important, if you can, to encourage everyone in your company to start blogging because it's sharing perspectives and it's sharing opinions. So for example, we try and encourage all of our developers to try and write something purely because you know, a professional WordPress developer 100% knows more than I do about developing code and writing plugins. So it's really a good thing to have someone like that write a post. Now, of course, what we do is, as well, we have a lot of editing going on, and it's a great thing to try and work together with a content marketer to try get set up and try get people to get blogging.
So if someone is starting a blog on YouTube, and they want to have a blog also, do they go about having a snippet of a video, just a few words on the blog, and then the video should be the main topic? Or should the video be a snippet and the main topic should be on the blog itself? What should they do?
Okay, thank you for your question. That's a really good point. What I would, I don't know if this is the best strategy, but what I would do essentially is I would write a short introduction which I think goes a long way, especially like when you're writing interviews or showing any type of clips. It helps to write an introduction to get the idea and to grab the attention of your readers. I think safely you can put the clip in. I think that works. I think having it right there and without people having to click off your page is a positive thing to do. That would be my advice. Any other questions? Idine tamo. Hi.
Doing like audio transcription of the blog post and then adding it to the document or something like that.
Yeah.
Did that bring better results? Or?
It depends. I think that's a good strategy. Just having like an abstract at the beginning and then which summarizes the blog post and then having the blog post afterwards. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but basically just if it's like a longer text, you can put the whole text transcribe. I mean, it's
Yeah. And I love a good abstract, especially if you're planning on writing a blog that's over 1,000 words. I think it can get a little bit too heavy. I mean, people nowadays don't have time. And just, think about when you read your blog post. You're making your coffee, you're looking through your mail, right? So you don't want to write something which is it takes too long a time to read. If you do, because there are topics which need to be discussed at length, then I highly recommend that you write a little abstract that's sort of grabbing. It's a bit like your meta description, but make it a little bit punchy so that people really, you grab their attention, and I think it's a great tactic when writing longer blog posts, essentially. Okay. What is the others? I do them.
You blog for personal purposes and for professional ones as well.
Okay.
Now, I guess blogging for personal reasons is very different than professional blogging, right? So my question is, how do you find the topics for your personal blog that are going to be interesting to your, I would say, non-pro audience?
Okay. So for those of you who don't know why they're laughing, it's because that's my boyfriend who obviously asked the most awkward questions. Okay, so that's actually a good question. I think to answer that is, I think you need to decide who your niche audience is. As in, if it's your personal blog, you need to define it in your head as well. It's very hard to just sit down and say, okay, I'm just going to start a blog and then start writing. So I think in that sense, you have to decide what really matters to you and what you want to focus on, and your niche audience will just form by itself. Does that answer your question? You're welcome.
Final question for today. Okay, I would like to know your opinion about guest blogging. And basically, do you agree it's a good way to grow your audience? And what's the best way to manage the guest blogs from random people?
Okay. That's actually a really good question as well. I think guest blogging can be a little bit tricky, purely because you need to make sure that the guest blogger is not just promoting their own product on your page, because essentially that doesn't really work out well for anyone, because your audience doesn't read it, and it's sort of a post which loses its point. So I think it's important that when you're guest blogging, you set guidelines. I don't know if you guys were here for Nevena's talk about what it means to be a WordPress professional, sorry. So it's equally important to have guidelines, and not a contract, but sort of a set of rules that you follow. What is acceptable in your blog, and you need to make sure you make that clear to them. And the topic needs to be discussed and agreed upon before anything gets written. So I think you need to be very careful and very precise when having guest bloggers, but I think it's a great way of sharing knowledge and of sort of sharing experiences. So I recommend it, but just with a little bit of caution on the side.
What do you think about writing posts on other people's blogs to make art for your website?
For my website?
For your content.
I think, so tying on from what I said regarding, regarding guest blogging, I think it's a great idea. I think, first of all, it's a great honor when somebody asks you to write for them. It means that they appreciate the way that you write and they like your style, which nowadays, with a lot of bloggers and a lot of posts going around, it's a great honor. So I think if you do get the opportunity, I think you should grab it. Again, make sure you do the same things. You make sure they're clear to you what you're allowed to write, what type of topic you're writing, and make sure you discuss their audience beforehand, so that when you sit down, you need to differentiate in your head, okay, I'm not writing for my own company, I'm writing for someone else. So this is not the audience I'm used to, this is not the people that normally read my blog posts, but that's not to say don't lose your personal touch and your secret sort of source, let's say. Okay.
We are constricted.
Hi.
Hi.
So, my question is, it's short, it's a bit complicated. So,
Okay.
it's a mix of social marketing and content marketing. So,
Okay.
when you write blog posts, okay, are you going to share on social networks, like a link, and, for instance, Facebook gets the excerpt and picture image?
Okay.
Or are you going to write different post, same post only in Facebook, for instance, like a regular post? And the follow-up question is why? Because you have some statistics in your blog that you follow, but then Facebook has their statistics that is much more advanced and much more better.
Okay.
This is hard.
Okay, so you guys are really making me sweat at the end of the day. Yeah, thank you. So essentially, are you asking specifically for Facebook, or are you asking generally about social media? Social media. Okay, so I think writing a blog post is half the battle. I think you really lose out if you don't know how to share your posts properly social media. I mean, I only opened my Twitter account recently, and I'm sure my colleagues will tell you I really don't like having Twitter and tweeting and selfieing and all of this. I know that might seem as a shock for someone who speaks so much, but I'm better in person. Essentially, half the battle is social media. So what you need to do with writing blog posts, especially when you know your audience, is to figure out when they're online, what portal they're using, and share it at the right time on the right portal. So it depends. For us, for example, Twitter works really well for Managed WP. We have a 4-tweet system, so to speak. So we even have a plan for that, where we tweet straight away, we tweet a couple hours later, we tweet the next day, and we tweet 7 days after the post. And so far, it's been working really well for us. So I think it just depends. You need to know who you're sharing to and what they are reading from. So if it's Twitter, if it's Facebook, if it's LinkedIn. I personally like sharing on LinkedIn if it's something that I'm pretty happy about that I've posted. So, does that answer your question? Okay. Any other question? Just do the others.
No.
My very shortly.
Okay.
What's your target audience if you're writing a blog post about the nets?
Okay, so just to clue everyone in, recently I wrote a blog post about blog management, funny enough, which inspired me for this presentation, and I got inspired by bananas, which are my favorite fruit. So the answer to that question is, yes, creative ideas come from the most unusual places. You might get inspired by something like a light bulb, which, you know, is fine. As long as you incorporate this in your blog post and make sure you don't lose the point. As long as you end up focusing on what really matters. So if you are talking about blog management, in my case, I tried to use bananas as an example of how to manage blogs, which I know it might seem like a crazy idea, but if you have some time, you're welcome to read it. It's on our Managed WP blog.
I just want to use it to Windows, so.
Hvala, Lasmi.
Could you tell, according to you, is it better to write a longer post, which will cover an entire specific tool, or is it better to divide it into smaller posts and publish them over time, for example, 2 or 3 blog posts?
Okay. That's actually, oh. That's actually something that we had to think about recently at Managed WP. A colleague of mine actually wrote both of those posts. We had new pricing models coming out. And the first post we wrote was extremely long, but very detailed. So I explained everything, and people just responded from all over the place. It seemed a little bit overwhelming, yet there was all the information there that needed to be said. What we did afterwards is we actually created a shorter, sort of like a summary version of the same idea, but just the main principles. So my answer to your question is, it just really depends. Sometimes when you have a big change or a big announcement, it's worth writing it all down and getting all the information out and having people respond to it, and then following it up with a summarized version of that. So just writing 300 words that bulk out exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. So it depends. It's a little bit of touch and go. Any more questions?